Sandra, can you give us an idea, firstly, of who is Christian Friends of Israeli Communities? We're not really familiar with who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm happy to introduce you to what we're all about. Christian Friends of Israeli Communities is an organization that was founded by Christians in the United States about 14 years ago. And unlike all the other Christian organizations which support Israel, this organization focuses exclusively on the communities in the biblical heartland and what is otherwise referred to as settlements, the communities in Judea and Samaria. And we also were focusing on the communities in Gaza before those were destroyed, and we have continued to work with the people who lost their homes in Gaza and support them as well. It is also unique in that is a partnership between Christians and Jews. Our supporters and activists all over the world are Christians, but those of us in Israel who are providing the information, helping donors visit communities and support the needs, we are all Jewish. So it is a real Christian-Jewish partnership.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about your background, Sandra. How did you come to be involved with this particular organisation? How did you end up becoming the Israeli director?
I really fell into this. I have to tell you, I grew up in the United States. I'm an Orthodox Jew. I had little, if any, awareness of what Christians were, certainly what evangelical Christians were all about. And it was really because for many years I have been involved both a voluntary and professional capacity in representing the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria that I came across Christians here and there. And at some point, there was a family in the United States that decided they wanted to do more and help educate Christians about the significance of the settlement movement. And they met me, and we started working together. And at some point, they said, they want to turn this into an organization, and would I open an Israel office and kind of, do this? And I said, sure. And it was that simple.
Wow. But what led you from the United States of America back to Israel? As you said, you're an Orthodox Jew, and I guess for you it would be almost like a homecoming back to the promised land of Israel. But what sort of led you to come from the United States of America, which is a stark contrast to the land of Israel?
It was just that, exactly what you said. It was a homecoming. As an Orthodox Jew, I went to Jewish schools all my life, and the Bible and Jewish history, etc., were very much a part of my identity, not just the question of the curriculum in the school. And as I get older, as a teenager already, it was very clear to me that Jewish history was moving in the direction of Israel. The state of Israel was an incredible miracle, probably the greatest miracle of all time. And how could I stand by the sidelines and not get involved, not jump into where the action really is? And that is really what propelled me more than anything else to move to Israel. And my husband and I moved when we were relatively newly married. We had 2 babies at the time, and we've been in Israel since 1984. And it's just been wonderful. So, for me, it was something that I planned ever since I was very young, and just did it as soon as I could.
Mm. Sandra, tell us a little bit about the communities, the settlements that you are part of. How does that work, and how are you establishing these communities back in the biblical heartland?
Well, it all goes back to 1967. At that time, Jordan was illegally occupying Judea and Samaria. They refer to it as the West Bank. And Jordan, as well as the other Arab countries, attacked Israel at that time. And in just 6 days, Israel, in a truly miraculous feat, were able to defeat the Jordanians and drive them east of the Jordan River, where they remain to this day. And it was really shortly after that there was a grassroots movement, a desire to come back to these biblical areas and settle them and make them part of the state of Israel. And already from the 1970s, the government of Israel was supporting that effort. And so ever since then, this has been really a combination of support from the people and support of the government to develop communities and enable Jews to live throughout Judea and Samaria. Today we have about 320,000 Jews living in this area. And we have villages, towns, cities, beautiful, beautiful places with schools and businesses, shops, etc. Unfortunately, these communities are quite controversial, as so many people around the world don't understand why we are here and consider Israel's claim to this area to be illegitimate, which in a way is ridiculous because how can you say that a Jew doesn't belong in Judea? The very name itself indicates that the people who belong here are the Jews themselves. So I've been living, when I moved to Israel, this whole idea of settling the biblical heartland was very special to me. And I've been living here ever since and have been a spokesperson for these communities to try to enable people all over the world to understand why it is we're here and what we have done to this land. And truly, anyone who reads the Bible, of course, understands that this is the heart of biblical Israel. But I would go even further and say anyone who reads the prophets, and especially let me refer to Ezekiel 36, that where Ezekiel addresses himself to the mountains of Israel. That's exactly where we are. And he prophesies about the return of the people to this land and the rebuilding of the ruined cities. That is exactly what we're doing here.
Mm. Sandra, an interesting thing I noticed the other night in our Australian media was a conversation with a progressive Jew, she calls herself, talking about the fact that, not necessarily agreeing with your point of view there of the Jewish people having that claim to the biblical lands, and the fact that saying that you can't leave a place for 2,000 years and not expect people to come and inhabit it, and you can't come waving your book and saying this belongs to me. How do you get through that negativity? How do you combat that sort of viewpoint? Because it's not just progressive Jews, if you like. That is quite often the viewpoint of many people in the Western regions of the world.
Well, first of all, I would invite that so-called progressive Jew to come to Israel and visit, and I would love to have a conversation with her. I think, unfortunately, what has happened with many Jews all over the world, while they have remained very solid in their identity as Jews, that has gotten mixed along the way with their identity as Australians or Americans or whatever, and therefore there's a bit of a dilution in their identity as Jews and with Jewish history. And so that is something really that, I would respond to her as a Jew. But in general, there's no question people leave a land for 2,000 years, all kinds of other people move in. First of all, we didn't leave on our own. It wasn't like we said, don't like the weather in Israel, let's go find, Miami Beach in Florida is better. That really is not what happened. We were driven from our land. But at the same time, throughout the history, anyone who is a serious student of the history of the land knows that throughout the period there were always Jews living here. And there were Jews living in Judea and Samaria as well as in the rest of Israel. Also, if you are checking and seeing who actually lived here, for most of the time this land was fairly empty. And I have a picture, for example, of the area of Shechem, from 1920, which shows the entire area that today is very crowded with Arabs living there was completely empty in 1920. So basically, at the same time that the Jews started coming back in larger numbers to this land, created economic opportunity here at the same time, or perhaps as a result of Jews coming back, or as a result of the British coming in here and what they provided, you suddenly had Arabs coming here from Saudi Arabia and from Egypt and from Syria and all over. So, we left for 2,000 years, that really isn't much of a claim. What I would say is that the Jews have one state in the entire world, and the Arabs have 22 states. I don't think they need more.
Yeah, fair enough. Sandra, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing around the world, because as you've said, you have links right across the world, the organisation, looking at, building the support of the Jews moving back into their homeland. You're also going to be visiting Australia a little bit later on in February. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Sure. Well, basically what happens is I travel mostly North America and Europe. And last year I came to Australia for the first time. Our relationships really are built with individuals and with churches and groups that we find, whether on the internet or they come to Israel. We spend a lot of time working with tour groups who come to Israel, want to actually come in to Judea and Samaria and visit. And it's through these contacts that we develop relationships with people in different countries. And last year, it just, I was invited by a number of communities to come, and I was in Australia and had a wonderful trip, and so I'm returning this year. Beginning on the 21st of February, I will be in Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, in Perth, in Brisbane area, and other smaller towns and suburbs, etc., nearby. So it's quite a trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. And each place, it's either a church or an individual who is hosting a meeting so that people are able to come and meet me and hear what we're all about. And actually, anybody who's interested, it is on our website, which is CFOIC.com. Anyone who's interested can check it out and then see the schedule and hopefully visit and come and join one of our events that is closest to where they are.
Do you find that Australians are more open to some of the ideas of the Jewish people heading back to their homeland?
I found wonderful reception in Australia. Now, again, I can't tell you what all the Australians, feel. I just am meeting the people who are coming to these meetings. Clearly are interested in Israel, and that's why they're coming. But I find in general, in Australia, in Europe, and in the United States, when I'm speaking to Bible-believing Christians, it's a very easy connection. Because anybody who takes the Bible seriously and believes it to be true, if I come and I say, okay, Israel belongs to the Jewish people, it's really a no-brainer. And so I find tremendous enthusiasm among Bible-believing Christians because they know what I'm saying is true from the Bible, and they're very eager to hear what I have to say about modern life in Israel and how our life and our ideology and our spiritual life comports to what they are reading in the Bible. And that in itself is a fascinating experience.
Mm. Well, it certainly sounds like you've got a full itinerary planned for when you visit Australia, and we look forward to hearing more about how you're received and what sort of reaction Australians give to you encouraging them to support the work of your organisation to allow Jews to return to their biblical homeland.
Right.
Well, Sandra, fascinating talking to you.
Well, thank you, Matt. This was wonderful.